Okay, I would like to call to order the Monday, May 13th, 2024 regular meeting of the St. Charles Community Unit School District 303 Board Meeting. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Bell. Here. Mr. Kuschert.
Here.
Mr. Lackner.
Here.
Mr. Lentz.
Here.
Mrs. McCabe.
Here.
Mr. McNally.
Here.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States.
Okay, and first, we'll begin with reports to the board. Superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairgrave. Tonight we have a number of celebrations and information for the board and the community. First up, I would like to welcome Mrs. Shannon Stone and one of our students, Capri Hardy, to the table for an update and information on our co-op program. Come up to the table. Yeah, and then you'll have to push the button once you see green. They're going to give the board and our community some information about one of the courses that occur in our high schools that really give students a really unique opportunity. So, Mrs. Stone, I'm going to hand it to you.
All right, thank you. My name is Shannon Stone. I teach at St. Charles East High School. This is my 21st year. And with the exception of 1 year, I've taught cooperative education for all those years. Co-op or cooperative education is a work-based learning program where juniors and seniors can earn high school credit for having a part-time job. There is a Co-op 1 and Co-op 2, and both are 2-credit year-long classes. On the job, it's a partnership between me, the students, their parents, and managers within the community. We help build their professional skills while working and building their work experience. In the classroom portion, students learn how to create resumes and cover letters, explore careers, as well as how to create a budget, buy a car, rent an apartment, and build their credit, among other important adult skills. We also have a Co-op 2 for students who have taken Co-op 1 their junior year. In Co-op 2, students learn how to live on their own, explore post-secondary options, and get a game plan together for their next steps, whether it's going to college, community college, trade school, military, or directly into the job force. My students work at places like McDonald's, Discount Tire, Baker Station, Target, McGrath Honda, Jewel Osco, Graceful Ordinary, Goodwill, and the Arcata, just to name a few. I've cared about each and every student that passes through my classroom doorway, and I know I've done my best to make sure that they have the tools they need to go out and be successful, as well as having a lifeline if they have any questions once they're out there. I encourage you to share with your students or children the opportunity that Co-op can provide your child with if they're are wanting to have a job and get that credit for having a job, get those job skills, get that real world job experience. You can always contact me if you have any questions about this great opportunity. And Capri is one of my students. This is my 2nd year. She's in Co-op 2. She's a phenomenal student, and I'm gonna miss her. So I'm gonna stop talking right now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Capri Hardy, and I'm a senior at St. Charles East. Outside of my main job as a student, I participate in track and field, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I'm currently working at Urban Counter. It would be an understatement to say that my schedule is busy, but I wouldn't trade any of it. Today, I sit before you with a heart filled with gratitude and appreciation for the cooperative education program, also known as Co-op. Co-op has been an integral part of my high school journey for the past 2 years. This year-long program has not only enriched my academic experience, but has also shaped me into a more responsible and capable individual as I prepare to head off into the real world. Balancing the demands of work, school, and extracurricular activities is no easy feat, especially not for a high schooler. Yet, through the Co-op program and with guidance from Ms. Stone, I have learned the art of time management and communication. I came in the junior year a bit scrambled. I frequently struggled with burnout or feeling like I had no control over my day. Juggling 10 hours of work each week while staying on top of my academic responsibilities and excelling in my athletic pursuits has taught me invaluable lessons in prioritization and discipline. It's not just about managing time. It's about making every moment count, whether it's in the classroom, on the track, or in the workplace. Speaking of the workplace, the co-op program has provided me with a unique opportunity to gain hands-on experience and insights into the professional world while being mentored and advised on my decisions. I've not only earned a paycheck, but also acquired practical skills and knowledge that are transferable to any aspect of life. From customer service to problem solving, every task I undertake at work contributes to my growth and development as a well-rounded individual. As I reflect on my journey in the co-op program, I'm filled with a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunities it has provided me and the lessons it has taught me. Through hard work, perseverance, and the support of dedicated individuals like Ms. Stone, I have grown not only academically and professionally, but also personally. The co-op program has empowered me to dream big, reach for the stars, and seize every opportunity that comes my way. I hope you will continue to support this program in the future. Thank you.
Board members, any question? That was close. That was really close. You were getting out that easy. I know there's board members who may have some questions for you.
I just want to ask if there's anybody with you here who might need some recognition as well.
My mom's there in the back.
I wondered what's next? What's on your life journey next?
So I'll be heading down to Purdue in the fall to major in psychology and minor in kinesiology.
Excellent. That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming today and telling us a little bit more about the co-op program, and seeing a face with it is really a good experience for us as board members because we can't get into every classroom. I'm really glad you're here, and congratulations. It sounds like you've really done a great job putting your best foot forward in this program and with your leadership and Mr. Richter. So thank you so much for coming today. Very impressive. Oh, absolutely.
Of course, and half of this wouldn't have been possible without Miss Stone. She takes a lot of time to help us with, figuring out colleges and deciding our next move. So I wouldn't be as far as I am without her.
I just love this program so much. I feel so fortunate to teach it and to get out in the community. Especially when it's like really warm days and I'm like, well, I get to leave school and go drive around and meet people. So it is just fun, and to work with the employers, the community is also really fun. They work so hard with our students and support them so much. They're teenagers, they make mistakes, they have challenges, they have weekend plans they didn't think about and all those things, and they work really hard with us. And I couldn't do without the community. This is an awesome community that we work in, so we appreciate that. And again, it's just a great program. I feel so fortunate for teaching it, and I just meet like some of the best kids. It's I just called it like this little gem of a class that we have in our district. And when I started, there were 4 classes of co-op 1 and 1 co-op 2, and we've gone down. Now we're starting to build it back up, and I'm just like so excited about that. And so many of our kids have jobs, right? Like, let's get some school credit for it. And it's just a really good opportunity. We have athletes also, obviously, in our program too. We work around their schedule and we do our best to accommodate as many as we can.
How many students do we have?
Right now I have 2 sections of co-op 1. So we're probably at about 50, about 25 in each class. And then co-op 2, we're at 10 kids. So we started off with 13, and then 3 graduated early. And so next year we'll also have 2 co-op 1s and 1 co-op 2. So I'm also grateful that we're able to run a co-op 2 section with 10 kids, 13 kids, because it just gives them, like, there's times they're sitting in applying for their colleges or for ECC in class. Like, what do we need to do to get you ready to go? And I think, and just exploring, because it just happens so fast and they just sometimes have not really thought so much about it, or whatever they need in class for co-op 2, we take care of it. So if they need to see their counselor, whatever they need to do to feel comfortable.
Are there any things that you can think of that are either roadblocks or things that you'd love to see from the community to help, help this program flourish, this class flourish more?
That's a really good question. I would, again, I would like to have and really like be just a partner with the community. I would love to have like, maybe seasonally, like a job fair where we can, bring some open opportunities, like maybe into our school. I also started, about a year or two ago for East, we have like a digital, job support website. So if they have any job openings, like I'll go in, I'll type everything in and we'll put our openings on there. So just, again, keeping the lines of communication, and as soon as they need jobs, they have openings, like, we try to get that message out. Sometimes it's hard. I feel like, North has not had this class in a while, so I feel like, we have employers all over the community, and we just would like to maybe, not work together, but just have the same types of things. Like we have a support website, because I thought like, who reads the board? They walk by it so fast. Let's have something digital, maybe like some type of district digital thing would be really good for employers, so they could kind of see and do something like that. And all of our students at both schools would see all of the opportunities out there. So just kind of building that up a little bit, I guess.
That'd be great. Yeah, that's certainly something that I know that I've heard, I know other board members have heard, like community, like how do we get access to, that we have these opportunities out there. So the more that we can help foster that.
Yeah.
the
I
better.
think, yeah, it's a good working relationship. Like I said, I'd love to have like some type of job fair, whether it's at the library or one of the schools, and just continue to work, as we, even for kids that are not in the co-op program, there's still kids that want seasonal jobs,
Yeah.
right? And just to make sure that the community feels supported by us, we've got like a pool of like some kids like that are, they could work. And we even have some employers that will hire 14-year-olds. And so I want to get like the word out about that too. They'll hire somebody with a work permit, and let's get them like started and rolling. Sometimes some of our kids have to work, and sometimes they have to contribute to family bills and stuff. So making sure that they know that there are opportunities.
Thank you.
Do we know if there's a particular reason why the class is only available at East? Is it based on interest?
It's based on interest.
Okay.
It's based on interest. I would say like the 1 year I didn't teach it is 1 year North had and we didn't have it. I was just kind of frustrated, but we will go, like our business ed department is awesome. And Mrs. Dandre, who hired me, or was one of many that hired me. She had been with the co-op program forever. And so she's a very good mouthpiece about joining things and being a part of stuff. And we really, I know the business ed department at North really wants to build it up too. And I know there's kids at North that work and have jobs, and I want them to have these opportunities. Actually, I take that back. I do have 2 kids from North that are in my class. Every year we have a couple of them. And so, they take the bus over and stuff. So
Perfect. So if there were a few kids interested, it wouldn't
Every
have
year.
to be a
Every year.
full class at a different
Yeah.
school.
yeah, so we
Good.
appreciate.
Perfect. Thank you
We
for
appreciate
clarifying
that
that.
opportunity for busing the kids back and forth if it's their interest, whether it's co-op or accounting or whatever. it is.
Right,
We
yes.
always appreciate that,
Perfect.
to like help the kids do what they want to do. So, yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for inviting us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Next up, Dr. Audra Christensen, coming to speak to the board, give the board a high level in our community, high level overview of our high school athletic review.
Make sure there's only one. Good evening. Tonight I'm here to provide you with a high-level overview of the high school athletic program review. You've already received a copy of the final report as well as an update in your packet last week. Again, the why behind doing the review. As a board, you asked the administration to review programs throughout our system. And so last fall, we began program review for the high school athletic programs. We wanted to make sure that the review engaged stakeholders from multiple stakeholder groups so that we could collect their feedback. We wanted to make sure that we identified strengths of the programs, as well as identified areas for growth within our athletic programs. We brought Renee Reynolds on board to assist. with the process. Renee, for those of you that don't know, is a retired high school administrator from District 303. And so she assisted with some of the lift of the work. The how behind this, in regard to the process, we included multiple feedback loops at the onset to ensure that we had voice and feedback from multiple stakeholders as we were creating the survey. So as an example, we invited the principals as well as the athletic directors from each of the high schools together to share the drafts of the survey, solicit their ideas, feedback, so that we could include that, incorporate that into the survey. Additionally, I had one-on-one meetings with coaches, a few coaches from each of the high schools to again share the surveys with them and solicit their feedback to fortify the survey. And then also met one-on-one with some of the leadership members of the SEA to collect their thoughts and feedback prior to sending the information and the surveys out. When we sent the surveys out early in November, we sent them to all current student athletes, all current student athlete parents, and all staff members, including coaches at the high schools. The surveys were anonymous, and they were designed particularly or specifically for each of the stakeholder groups. So there were 3 unique surveys that were emailed with a link at the beginning of November. There were reminders along the way of, hey, the survey's out there, please make sure to get it complete. And once we had a closing date for the survey, we did analyze the data to identify trends and to identify some questions that we wanted to ask in a focus group setting to deepen our understanding of the feedback that they were sharing, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Renee really, in addition to the analysis and creation of the surveys, helped with the focus groups. We ran 16 total focus groups between the 2 high schools. We had 4 student focus groups at each high school. We had 2 parents of student athlete focus groups at each high school, as well as 2 staff or coaches focus groups at each high school. The findings that we found, we divided into 3 different groups. We have strengths, we have areas for growth, and we also have considerations. And the considerations are really more about facilities and maybe some capital outlay for us to consider as a system. I'll start with some of the growth areas, and these are just a few of them. As you saw, there's a list. Most of our student athletes and parents agreed that player selection is based on skill, knowledge, and capability. Another strength is that our coaches are knowledgeable about the sport they coach, they care about their athletes, and they invest in developing sport-specific skills. And the third that I'll share this evening is that while communications may vary, communication is occurring across all programs. A few of the areas for growth, again, you have the full list in your update. One of the areas for growth is to develop a philosophy of athletics for our school district. Another is to update the code of conduct, which, as you know, is included in your consent agenda tonight, along with the student handbooks. And so that has been accomplished and was accomplished collaboratively with the assistant principals for student life at each of the high schools, as well as the athletic directors and Aubrey Schuett. And the third area of growth that I'll identify tonight is to provide professional training to coaches on topics such as the code of conduct, conflict management, and supporting the mental health of the athletes. I am extremely proud to share with you that both of our athletic directors, current, and then also our new athletic director, have been engaged in conversation and some planning to address all of the areas, not just the 3 that I mentioned this evening, areas of growth. And they have identified and are in the works with getting things set for the summer and for next fall as we move into the new school year. And that's very exciting that this report is already having an impact. Now I'll share the areas of consideration, as I mentioned at the onset of my sharing. These are areas that may fall into capital outlay as they are facility specific. And they really are addressing some enhancements to facilities as well as addressing some safety concerns that were expressed in trend data across all of our stakeholder groups. First, across both high schools, conduct a review of indoor athletic facilities through the lens of parity. Specifically at East High School, adding restrooms to the stadium, updating the locker rooms and the indoor track, and improving tennis court lighting. And at North, The areas for consideration are increase locker room space and update the female locker room. Inspect and resurface the track. Inspect and repair the main gym floor. And inspect and repair the ventilation and gutter systems in the natatorium, which is a really fancy way to say pool area. Again, I'm extremely proud of how this review shaped the process. I think it's something that we can repeat in other areas. It really was inclusive, involving all of the layers of stakeholders, really taking some time to also have some feedback loops and communication opportunities to set the stage for the success of the review. And I feel as many of the areas of growth that we've identified are things that are already being worked on to improve for the betterment of our programs and more specifically our student athletes.
Board members, any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. One of the findings was providing transportation to off-campus practice areas. Can you delve a little bit deeper into that feedback? I thought that was something that, well, can you give a little bit more feedback on that one?
Sure. Sometimes, for example, for boys and girls golf, also for gymnastics, their practices are off-site. And sometimes they're right after school and sometimes they're later in the evening. And so sometimes we are able to have, because of the timing of dismissal for all of the different levels, having a full bus available to take the student athletes and their equipment to and from the site of the practice is the challenge. And so oftentimes they are driving themselves or driving a teammate with them, or a parent is driving, or there is minibus transportation to the site for then family members to pick up the child or the athlete at that particular site.
What percentage of activities would you say that this is occurring for those? Like, is it, because again, we know that we've had issues with transportation, right? With available bus drivers, equipment. What, like, is this systemic? Is it like 90% of it? Is it,
I
what's
think it's
the,
really those three.
just those three?
I think there's about 4.
Mm.
We've got lacrosse, bowling, gymnastics, and golf.
Okay.
So it's a small population.
Right.
But sometimes there are underclassmen that don't have that
Don't have
transportation, and so we want to just try to look to see if we can be more equitable and provide those opportunities for them.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. This is great. You had mentioned a couple safety issues. Anything that should be top of mind for consideration from the board as you did this review? Anything glaring that should be of utmost consideration as we move forward?
The biggest feedback I received, and this comes mostly from student athletes, which I think they're the ones that are really experiencing it, would be the track at North, because they say they are divots in the track, which that can be a challenge. I would say the natatorium with the gutter system. I'm trying to think what the other big thing was. I think those are really probably the 2 biggest health safety concerns that I can think of.
Yes, the ventilation.
Oh, the ventilation in the pool as well. So, it was shared from students and parents that athletes in the pool sometimes were sick during the season. And that's where they're spending a good chunk of their time. Once the season would end, then that would go away.
Yeah, I know I've heard from parents that the pool, like, it's sometimes overwhelming in the stands there and other things. So the ventilation has definitely been feedback.
Thank you.
I think another high impact area would be the stadium at East with restrooms there, either porta potties or going into a very small facility inside the field house for convenience, especially for someone who has mobility challenges. That would be something also to consider because of so many events that take place with so many spectators. I think that's an important consideration.
For a couple of those things, is that something that we can put here tonight? Is that something we can put with Justin and Amanda to, like, at least kind of put those out there, right? I know we're set from a budget perspective, but certainly, you know, and a couple of these things I think are on our list right now, right? From a facility standpoint. But that would be something good for us as a board to be able to, you know, help prioritize, especially now that we've got feedback from this. Love it.
So what's next and how are families and students going to learn about the report and I would be curious as you get things done
Mm.
for us to have kind of an ongoing because there are a lot of things here that can happen without a lot of money.
Correct.
And I want to commend you that looking at the equity of both buildings, but also teams, and I think those are really strong places that things can happen without a lot of work. So what's your next step?
Well, I think, firstly, I'm working with the athletic directors, and in conversations and as, Mr. Howard enters, he and Mr. Benoit looking at next year. We'll be working there, have already begun working on this, but talking about, shared philosophy of athletics. Those things, like you said, that don't cost money, bringing some, consistency and parity in terms of, processes, practices. Those are things that will begin immediately. And like I've said before, kind of have already started, to take place. Another thing that is, that both of, the athletic directors have discussed is ongoing surveying of student athletes and families, moving forward. As an example, Mr. Howard, has a practice of, surveying students at the end of each season, student athletes at the end of each season, and then student athlete parents, at the end of every other year, to collect that feedback and that information. And also, both of the athletic directors are talking about, leadership teams where student voice, will be not only collected, but also their leadership will be enhanced. And so I think that's another way that much of this, will take place and continue, just as a continuous improvement process moving forward.
Would there be a reason specifically why they would only survey parents every other year in case?
I think that was his practice before. That may change as he comes into our school district. And I know he and Mr. Benoit are talking about what that will look like because
Okay.
that's one of the things that they are interested in is having consistency.
Right, well, if parents, they're only having one
Correct.
year of it, or it's their child's senior year or something like that, I would hate to miss
Yeah.
any of that feedback.
Understood.
And so just to follow up, are you planning to put something on the website about the report? Is there something that families who did participate and students, they know the results?
It wasn't something that we had originally discussed. I think that's definitely something we can consider and I can work with the principals and the athletic directors on.
When you do a survey and then no one tells you what the results
Mhm.
were, you may not do the next survey. So if that's something you could consider, it doesn't have to be the website, but some
Sure.
way of communicating.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks.
I thought this was incredibly thorough, very well thought out, extremely appreciative of all the work and effort that was done by everyone involved. I know it's just not just you two, you are the two here. So I really appreciate it all. I read every word of all the pages, front to back, all of it. Okay, well, on my iPad, but you know what I mean. To say that I was impressed just doesn't cover it. So, as a parent in the district, former parent in the district, but as a board member, they really checked all the boxes. I can't think of anything negative to say. It was just, not that I want to, but I mean, it was just so far exceeding anything I thought that you might look into. Wow. And, looking at even the timeline, I thought that was really important to see. This was not a 3-week project. Not that you would approach it that way, but I was really impressed and so grateful that the effort was done and it just seems so incredibly thorough. And thank you so much. And please share with the team. Very much appreciate. I am not speaking for the board. I am speaking for myself and saying that I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I thought it was incredibly insightful. Well done.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the report. Next up is our Senior Director of Professional Learning, Pam Jensen, giving the board and the community an update around some of the most important work that we do using a phrase that I say often around growing our big people. Pam?
I would like to first of all thank Dr. Gordon for having me come and be able to speak to you tonight and celebrate really our professional learning and how we've aligned it
Yeah.
to the strategic priorities. I would also like to start by thanking you as a board for having the strategic plan, and it really gives us a focus and a filter for our professional learning. And then even though I'm sitting up here at the table by myself, there are a lot of people behind professional learning, so it's not just me. There's a lot of people who work to make this successful, including a lot of our educators who are creating courses and facilitating courses, as well as all of our educators who are taking courses. So thank you to start. Okay, so all of our professional learning is really going to be focused and filtered around these strategic priorities. So that's what we're going to use, and that's what you should see as the theme tonight as I'm talking about the professional learning. So professional learning takes many different, you can look at it in many different ways. Here are some of the ways that we provide professional learning in D303, and it's really kind of a comprehensive look at professional learning. We have professional learning courses that we offer, and I'm going to go more into those a little later. We have embedded professional learning, so teachers and educators can choose to learn within their classroom setting through coaches and other specialists. We have a mentoring program. It's a 4-year mentoring program, which is all professional learning for 4 years when someone starts here in our district. We have curriculum-based professional learning, which is professional learning around the curriculum and the resources that we have. And then we also, as you know, have PLC learning this year. We've done a lot of learning, not only about PLCs, but also within the PLCs, as educators are talking with other educators and sharing their strategies, they're doing professional learning amongst the PLCs. And so tonight, what I'm going to focus on is our professional learning courses and how we've aligned those to the strategic priorities, as well as a specific part of mentoring, and that's our new Educator Academy. Okay, so overall purpose of those 5 areas of professional learning is really to provide educators with the skills and tools so that ultimately our students are able to meet our college and career benchmarks. And I even quoted Dr. Gordon here, or more simply stated, growing our big people to grow our people. So overall, that is the goal of professional learning. So we offer professional learning courses, and I think this is pretty unique to our district. We offer courses that are 15-hour courses and 30-hour courses. We offer them 3 times a year in the fall and the spring and the summer. And those courses are offered many different ways. They're offered asynchronously, they're offered in person, and they're offered blended. The reason that we offer these courses here is so that our educators can decide to take a course here in our district, and we align it directly to our strategic plan, directly to our goals, and directly to our students. So if they're taking a course in our district, they're not only doing the learning, but they're also applying within the classroom, and then they're coming back and they're collaborating and they're reflecting, because we know that learning really happens through that reflection. So it's pretty awesome to be able to offer this 3 times a year to our educators. I will say too that educators in our district are offered surveys, so their voice is heard as to what courses they would like to see offered. And then Jennifer Adam is sitting behind me. We this year have worked really closely with the union to hear voices within our mentoring program. All right, so this is what we call our heat map, and this is a direct alignment now to the strategic priorities. Like I said, the strategic priorities are focus and filter for our courses. So on the left-hand side, you will see courses that we're offering this summer. On the far right-hand side are the strategic priorities, and in the middle are our instructional coherence components. In the middle that's kind of how we define instructional coherence. So if it's in burgundy during that course, it's going to be a primary area of focus. And if it's in beige, it's going to be a secondary area of focus. So we use this 2 ways. The first way is as a committee, when we're looking at what courses to offer, we look to see what might we be light on that we need to add more of, right? And if we have a that doesn't fit there, we might retire that course, because we really want to focus. Everything needs to be focused on the strategic plan. The other great thing about this heat map is that if I'm an educator and I want to do something with culture of dignity, I really want to improve that in my class, I can go and I can filter myself. I want to look at culture of dignity and maybe I want to look at rigorous instruction. So I can look at which ones those are primary and I can use that. But the idea behind all of this is that people see how everything connects and that we are all working and going down the same road, which is our strategic priorities. So I'm going to give you an example of a class that's going to start this summer, and it came from that focus and filter. So the title is Formative Assessments That Drive Instruction. It's a 15-hour course. You're suggested to take it with a PLC member if able. If not, you don't have to. But this came because we were hearing throughout the year that we're asking educators to do assessments every 5 days of learning. And we had heard that some people were like, what exactly does that look like? What can we do? How can we improve in that area? So we thought we would go ahead and do this course that is in direct alignment. Then we also looked at our heat map and found out that we did not have too many classes on assessments. And so between the two, we worked with our educators to come up with this course. Here's another example course, and this is Spanish for Educators, Level 1. The idea of this course came from our educators. We had educators reaching out to say, I really want to learn some Spanish for educators so that I can help my students feel more belonging, have more sense of a belonging in class, so we can help our parents feel like they have more of a sense of belonging, and so we can be responsive to our students and help them access the learning that's happening in this class. So that came from our educators. Okay, so the other part I want to speak to today is really our new Educator Academy. We have aligned every session in our new Educator Academy to one of the strategic priorities. So I just did a snippet of day one of New Educator Academy, and you'll see that no matter in which section you're in, you're either learning about culture of dignity, instructional coherence, or effective collaboration. Within the effective collaboration, Dr. Igo is going to come and she is going to talk about PLCs so that no matter where you came from, if you were on a PLC, you understand what we're talking about in PLCs. So again, in direct alignment with the strategic priorities. And again, day 2, culture of dignity, instructional coherence. The goal here is that when our new educators leave New Educator Academy, they understand what we value and they understand the strategic plan, and they can start day 1 in school with that understanding. Again, we worked with the union, and Jennifer, Adam, and I had a joint committee that worked together. This came from negotiations, and it was a very strong collaborative effort. People seemed very excited, and we made some great changes. That's really going to support all of our educators. All of this has been through voice that we've got with surveys with other people, our educators, as well as our work together. All right, I want to thank you very much for your vision, because your vision has really provided that focus and filter of our professional work.
Board members, any questions?
Are we able to see some of the materials that you guys have prepared for the new educate? Like, I'm just curious. I'd love to kind of take a look at some of the orientation and some of the classes. That'd be wonderful.
That can definitely be shared.
That'd be
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I've had the experience of being in a few districts where there was a strategic plan that was done in 3 days and then on a shelf. So I want to make sure that I say thank you for making it a reality, and this will change the culture. I'd also like to ask if there's any chance that when you start the New Educator Academy, that board members who are able could be invited to welcome them. We've done that before, and then they know that we also want them to feel like they belong, and then we can build a relationship. So
That
if that's
sounds amazing.
possible.
There will be an invitation soon.
Thank you for all your.
I have a couple of technical questions.
Yes.
For which I don't expect answers tonight.
Okay.
The first would be, how much do we spend on professional learning and professional development? And hold that one for a second. The other one is, we know that the state mandates professional development in order for teachers to maintain their certification and their licensure. what percentage of our teachers are leveraging the courses that are offered here in order to maintain that licensure versus outside courses through universities or through other elements of professional development. And the spirit of the question is, are we providing enough professional development opportunities within the district to ensure that the teachers can maintain their licensure here? At the same time, I would like to understand the cost of that versus any of the tuition reimbursement programs that we have also embedded in the teacher benefit program.
So I can answer a few of those now. One of them I can let you know, each year, there's about 1,000 seats that our educators are taking up with our courses. So I say seats because I won't say 1,000 educators because sometimes they might take multiple courses, but we have around 1,000 seats that they're using, which is quite a few people. We usually offer about 10 to 12 courses and they usually fill up quite frequently. So that's about how many we have. I don't know the money versus outside. I also do course approvals for outside courses. And I could get the numbers for how many outside courses that we offer for sure. I know some are going to get like their master's or their doctorate, but then there's also people who are taking courses outside that are just general courses. There's reasons different people take courses. What I've heard is sometimes people take them because they're like all asynchronous and they can do them on their own and they don't have to come in. I just know there's such an advantage, which is exciting with the courses that we offer here because it's a direct connection to the plan. So I can find that information out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to tie to that, there are some courses we can't do
Right.
for them to get their EL or their special ed. Is that right?
Yes, that
So
is
that
correct.
they still have to go
Have to
to
go.
a different institution.
Just one quick question. Do we have like outside seminars, you know, the 1 day, 2 day seminars that teachers are going to? Are those afforded to teachers? Sometimes it's good to bring in things that are, as much as we want to stay within the plan, new ideas don't always come from inside. So
There are 1-day seminars that people go out to.
I am incredibly proud of the work Pam and the team have done to align the work directly to our strategic plan. As you mentioned, Mrs. McCabe, I've been in districts and that's not always the case. It's more random professional learning as opposed to strategic, intentional learning that occurs within D303. I am so pleased with where we're at in a very short amount of time of turning where we were to where we're at today. And that is largely a reflection of your work and your leadership. And I'm just thankful for the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, because it's a night of celebration, we're nearing the end of the school year. So I was trying to jam it all in here. So I apologize, but we do have our celebration video that continues to highlight students and staffs throughout the month of April. But then I'm not quite done yet after that. Just hold on.
Glasses, and you may look at the
They'll continue collecting plastic here through the end of the school year. The goal to reach 2,000 pounds. And they're close, right guys? Yeah.
we'll share the rest with you at a different time. For me, as superintendent, over these last 4 weeks, the immense pride I have in our students, staff, and families is literally off the charts. I'm just going to take you back to just last Friday, how Lincoln Elementary School handled the 95th year celebration. Jared Buxton, Michelle Woodring, the PTO, the collaboration that occurred was off the charts. From 5 to 6, they welcomed in former Lincoln staff, families, and students. The smiles, the, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're here. The connections were just, it was just an awesome event. Many of our veteran friends from class of 1955, class of 1947 were there. And guess what they wanted to see? And they were questioning Mr. Buxton if they were still there. The pond. Because for many of them, they had stories of somebody falling into the pond and they needed to see, and they couldn't quite believe that it was still there. Nor could they believe that the same hooks and the same cabinetry and the same this. So it really just was a magical night. I think what set it off were having 5 former principals there to really, bring home the point that, yes, it is a building, brick and mortar, and we have a fish pond and all those things. But the piece that just came alive that night were the connections, and what we do as a school community is make connections and lasting partnerships with people. It was absolutely spectacular. I had a few minutes with Nancy and Bill Miller. They are 90 years old, and they would not be embarrassed that I shared this with the board and the community. And they taught at Wasco Elementary and here at Thompson. He was a teacher here, and they absolutely loved every moment of being in this community. They still live in the Wasco community, but that was the sentiment that was shared across how much they love and appreciate our district. They absolutely love Lincoln and what it was, but it was just pride for the school and for being together. So I absolutely love that. For our board members and our community who were able to participate in the East and North Honor Nights, seeing our students, highlighting our students, it does not get any better than that. And then seeing the work behind the scenes of all of our educators supporting our students to get them to this point. It were 2 awesome evenings. I had the privilege of last Friday going to the incubator night and seeing our students standing on stage and delivering and being pushed back by experts, judges, and sharks at the table and really pushing their thinking. Again, another outstanding opportunity for our students to shine. Between the video and everything we're doing, there's just so much pride in the work that we're doing in the direction we're heading. And I'm just incredibly grateful for all of the partnerships throughout this district, from board to our students, to our staff, and to our community, all coming together to really make this an unstoppable force of a district moving forward together to do better things for our students. So just thank everyone for all the work they're doing. Last little reminder, my longest superintendent report ever. Last day of school is May 30th. Remember that we had those 3 emergency days. So May 30th, we got this. We're still moving forward. We still got some work to do. So with that, Mrs. Feargrave, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gordon. Now we'll move to board member reports from committee meetings. Can we start with the policy committee?
Yeah, I have the policy reports. There were actually 2 meetings. One was April 8th, but the same date as the previous board meeting. In that meeting, we discussed policy 220, which was board meeting procedures. to review the ability of board members to participate in meetings via Zoom. We looked at the library media program or to develop, the American Library Association wants us to develop a written statement prohibiting the practice of banning books, and we brought that forward to the April 29th meeting as well. But our legal team was looking at it as of right now. They're happy with the wording that we have. Next up was district employees, allowing district employees, their non-resident children to attend school in the district on a tuition-free basis, and that is up for discussion or approval tonight. And the next was student appearance. A procedure will be created for inclusion in the student handbook, including a form that the student and parent would complete explaining the reason the student would modify graduation attire. Next up was student behavior, specifically around plagiarism and via artificial intelligence, which is a new concern, relatively new concern. And it was decided that there was going to be staff members working with students to individually discuss what plagiarism is and what are acceptable ways to avoid plagiarism moving forward with the new technology. It's important to note consequence for this would be academic and not disciplinary in nature. Separately, there was an outstanding question about required notification duty to include drug-related incidents and battery of a staff member. Next up was policy for administering medicine to students. There was a discussion about oxygen tanks and also the Narcan and EpiPens. And again, this policy is going to be discussed or brought here for approval. On the April 29th meeting, we had discussion on the 24-25 student handbooks. There were a number of items that were mentioned in there. Very briefly, student directory information, artificial intelligence, college and career counseling program for middle and high schools only, employee conduct standards, parking, sexual abuse and response prevention, resource guide, accelerated placement program, curriculum and assessment, and student appearance. Again, we kind of discussed that previously. Education of children with disabilities, student photographs and videos, student identification cards, and waiver of school fees. We had for item B, the addendum to student handbooks on bullying, intimidation, and harassment. There was an updated list of actual perceived distinguishing characteristics, addition of the 24-hour notice requirement, prohibited conduct definitions, code of conduct, and next up we had there was added sections on bullying and hazing clause and due process procedures, updated sections within the redefining the categories for certain violations. And then again, the library media program and our legal team has indicated that for now they're comfortable with the language in the district's current policy. And that brought us to the end of that meeting. And again, rather than hearing me ramble through those, I think it's good for people to go and take a look at the YouTube videos of those meetings so they can see and understand precisely what's going on. So I encourage people to do that.
Thank you, Mr. McNally. Next, Learning and Teaching Committee.
Okay, thank you. So L&T met back on Monday, April 15th, and we opened with a discussion regarding a PLC update and a success story, which I know we all like to hear, and that was regarding an 8-point performance increase on the, Dr. Igo, I believe it was the March Common Lit assessment, right?
That is correct. For
From
grade 10.
March to January, or from
Yes.
January to March, I should say. So that's encouraging. We certainly all believe we have work to do, but it's awesome to see improvement and the impact of the collaborative PLC work, like Ms. Jensen mentioned this evening. The next several items that we went through were various resource recommendations for the next 6 years. These items all have their own presentation, which were very well done. I'd encourage folks to go take a look at them. They were as follows: 6 through 12 resource for social studies, 6 through 12 for French, 6 through 12 for science, and then K-5 music. These all went through the rigorous collaborative CAI process, and that's a curriculum assessment and instruction committee process, which was also, we were told that this has been very well received, very thorough process, and staff feel heavily involved and engaged in said process. So that's another improvement within the district. And then we finished with a high school experience discussion where L&T will be continuing to audit the academic experience and outcomes to create recommendations and an implementation timeline that supports the measurable growth in our key success areas, indicator areas rather. L&T continues to do that research, and we had a special emphasis on that comprehensive high school experiencing and leveraging the experience of both our comparable and our aspirational districts. Not that we're trying to be anybody else, but we can take best practices from them and enhance the corresponding experience for our high school students. As Mr. McNally just mentioned in the policy update, all meetings are recorded and posted on our YouTube page. We encourage everybody to watch those. They are riveting experiences. Lots of laughs and fun for you to review. And our next meeting will be a week from tomorrow, May 21st at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Kusher, for that update. Now moving to business services.
All right. Business services met on April 29th as well. I'm gonna try to go through our very long agenda from that evening. So Mid Valley, our revenue is slightly higher as it was at this point. So there's no current concerns with Mid Valley. D303, our revenue is also trending slightly ahead of prior year. Expenditures are also slightly ahead. There are no concerns at this time. You will see on tonight's consent agenda the calendars for FY 2026, 27 and FY 27, 28. We've had both of those. You will also, we continued our discussion of our long-term department budgets. So we started off with reviewing admin's follow-up to the board's previous asks, including the org charts, the ratios, and we agreed that a separate calculation for ratios would be done annually, so that admin could continue to use the ISB numbers to allow us to do our comparisons. We also, in that meeting, reviewed the transportation, facilities, and human resources budget. I think we had a great discussion on that. Again, we are going to continue that. As Mr. Kushert said, these are riveting discussions. Again, very important though for the district, and that will be occurring in our next meeting. You will see also under consent today, 2 transfers. So the first is a working cash transfer. Annually, the district moves cash around out of the working cash fund to other funds. In this case, there's about $2 million that is going to the tort fund from working cash. And then there is a capital projects transfer that is authorizing the transfer about $3 million in funds from the operations and maintenance fund to the capital projects fund. Both of those, again, are on consent. Next, we had a review of the transportation video surveillance. Our transportation video surveillance systems are end of life. This is for the purchase of new systems. Again, we're authorizing this before we add a whole bunch of new fleet vehicles, as we've been discussing. That is on consent agenda as well. We talked through the a la carte meal pricing. There are some updates to the a la carte food pricing. Quest, our vendor for this, was asked to recommend only the necessary increases to minimize, again, that financial burden on our district's families. That is on the consent agenda for this evening. We also have a recommendation for the food service contract. That is on tonight's consent agenda. For the folks at home, that is a very regulated process through ISB. Essentially, we do a scoring on the different food vendors, and then we have to have ISB approve this, our whole selection process and everything else. That is for the winner of our selection process, and again, approved through ISB, is Organic Life LLC. For about $2.8 million. They scored a 90.30 on our vendor scoring, the highest score. The next item here is the school nutrition program. So that was that is also on consent agenda. That is asking admin to continue to execute all the necessary documents to continue us in that program. We also are going to be updating the food service equipment at Fox Ridge. Again, another item on consent. This is one where we are also taking advantage of some of the Omnia Partners contracts to get us some reduced pricing, which is very exciting for us. Then we also have another update to the East High School walk-in cooler. Just for the folks at home, this cooler is from the 1970s and it's finally died on us, or it's being kept on life support. So there is an item on the consent agenda. We're authorizing admin to purchase a new freezer for not to exceed $120,000. Again, we're replacing a piece of equipment from the 70s. So we got a pretty good use out of it. Also on consent is updating our building systems automation controls. This is one of the first parts of it. This is for an authorization of about $79,000 to start updating the controls at our buildings, just for the community and for the board. We've heard previously about how many of our mechanicals are older and require a lot of manual efforts to keep our buildings at stable temperatures and manage our environments. This is, again, to help reduce some of that manpower burden on us, because again, every time we have any kind of inclement weather or anything else, we have to have staff in the buildings manually adjusting things, potentially in classrooms, getting up into ceilings and moving louvers and all that other stuff. So this is again a forward move that is on our consent agenda to update and put in some automated controls in there. Next also on consent is the bus lot paving replacement project. This is a 2-year project. This is the first one. We are going to be replacing half of our bus lot at PAC. And that is a contract for I believe about 1.8 million through Pepper Construction through our process. Next, we went through the Lincoln Moving Services, so Midwest Moving and Storage. For the amount of about $39.5 is also on the consent agenda. We know that as Dr. Gordon mentioned, we have a tight timeline at the end of the year here that we're going through. As soon as school ends, moving company has a very short window in order to move folks out of Lincoln, move them where they need to go. That time frame is very tight. So that is on consent agenda as well. Next, we went through the Wasco Fast Pitch contract extension. That is for the management of those fields there. This is an update to the lease term, which ended originally in July. We're now moving that lease term date out to December 31st. It's on consent agenda. The district, as we discussed in the meeting, is also looking at all of our long-term leases, to again make sure that we're rating them appropriately. Next, also on consent, again, we've got a lot of things on the consent agenda. It might be beating our record from the business services meeting for saying on consent agenda. But the Wasco Playground Accessible Swing, this one is really great. Is another thing that we've done again through the Omnia Partners contract. But this one also included, we've had some help from the community. A couple of community organizations have helped raise funds for us to be able to install this swing. So again, one of the things that we've talked about, right, is the pride in the community and the community giving back and stuff like that. This is another example of that pride in the community. And then finally, 2 IT related. So first is our annual student device rotation. This is about $1.2 million for our annual replacement of Chromebooks. And then our network switching refresh. So we maintain quite the network here in D303. We've been able to we have a participate in some reimbursement projects that give us about a little over $600K discount. So this is about $900,000 that is also on consent agenda for us tonight. And I think I hit everything. Mr. Lattner, anything else?
Well done.
Okay, thank you for that update from business services. I don't think we have an update from DPTO at this time. So with that, we will go ahead and move to citizen comments. So Mr. Lackner, if you can read the preamble.
Thank you. During the public comment period, members of the public body who wish to speak are asked to first state their name and community in which they reside. Each individual will have up to 3 minutes to address the board on a topic of their choosing. We ask all individuals who address the board to do so with respect and civility towards others. Please note that personnel matters are sensitive and confidential. We also want to inform our speakers that all regular, special, and committee meetings are live streamed and available for viewing at any time on the district's YouTube channel. Personal information should be considered before making a statement that will be recorded and made public. While the board will not respond to today's public comment during this meeting, we are committed to listening to you to help support our work for the district and on behalf of our students, families, staff, and community members.
Thank you. I would like to ask Ms. Terry McCann-Mikowski forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Terry McCann-Mahalski. I am a resident of St. Charles and a mom of 2 students in their 8th grade year at Red Lane. Here to talk to you about bullying in our district. Both of my children have been impacted by bullying as victims, witnesses, and as individuals who have friends and siblings going through bullying. In fact, my children's milestone 8th grade year is marked by pervasive, substantially detrimental episodes of bullying. In particular, my daughter, who has been the target of multiple students who persistently and aggressively bully her day after day. I know my children are not alone. We have worked with teachers, staff, the principal, and the district to try to get this to stop. My daughter's had her classes changed, her lunch changed, and we even at the beginning of the year planned her classes to avoid certain students due to issues the previous year and the need for police involvement. A no contact safety contract was implemented for one of these students this year, but the issues persisted. The school tells us that these incidents are not bullying. Each time, though, they could have been avoided if her plan and all of the stated instructions in these plans to the teachers had been followed. An email was sent to Dr. Gordon on April 8th, detailing much of her year and asking for help. Yet still, this keeps happening and nothing is resolved. What does it take to protect our students and make our schools safe? Where is this culture of belonging, inclusion, and the pathway to success? My daughter has lost all faith and trust in the school and in the staff. She has been taught that she does not matter. Despite being in a protective class with a 504 and an IEP that's being developed, her needs, they're just not important. Other students have been taught that it's okay to bully and harass her, and they do persistently and cruelly. Her rights and her plan, they're violated constantly, and it doesn't seem to matter. I would like someone here to help stand up and tell me and her that she matters, and to also show the other special education students as well as the other students in the district who are bullied, like my son, their friends who are called the R word, SPED, and countless other things, that they matter, that their needs matter. What we really need to do is to build a foundation where our students feel safe physically and mentally, so that they have the confidence to achieve more and succeed. The plans that we often see presented to the board focus on academics, especially those who are top achievers. They're not the ones who are the whole student body. They're not the ones who are necessarily like my daughter, my son, or their friends. We also need to look at the staff, the parents, and the community. These are the 3 main pieces that the foundation of the system really rests on. Thank you. I greatly appreciate some follow-up because my students matter. All students should feel safe, and this should not be happening and needs to stop. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming forward with those citizen comments. With that, then we will move to the next item on our agenda. And that would be section 4 of the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4A through 4PP?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz. And is there?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell. Yes. Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving to section 5, which is for action. Item A is the designation of depositories. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution of the School Board of Community Unit School District 303 designating depositories for school district funds?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert and Mr. Lentz for the second. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mr. Lackner,
Abstain.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell. Yes. Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Abstain. The motion does pass with 5 yes and 2 abstain. Moving to item B on the agenda, separation agreement with tenured teacher. Can I have a motion to approve the separation agreement with tenured teacher Elizabeth Vanderwood as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Lentz. Thank you, Mr. Lackner, for the second. Is there any discussion on this item at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell. Yes. Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Next, we'll move on to section 6 of the agenda, which is for information. There are our 4 standing items that are included in the packet for your information. We have our D303 financial report, the Mid-Valley Financial Report, Freedom of Information Act or FOIA requests, and then our district enrollment. Section 7 on the agenda is new business. Does any board member have any new business items at this time? Okay, now, can I have a motion to adjourn Sine?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell. Yes. Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. And now, can I have a motion to appoint Tammy Marsan as President Secretary Pro Tem?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert and Mr. Lentz for the second. Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mr. McNally,
Here.
Mrs. Bell. Here. Yeah, you can just indicate yes.
You would
but that's okay.
indicate yes or no, but that's fine.
That's
Yes.
okay. Thank
Sorry.
you. Yes, thank you. Mr. Kuschert,
I am here, but I also have yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Now we will move to our 4 action. Actually, you need to take a roll call. Yeah, but. Whatever, right.
Okay, I'm just gonna take a roll call vote. Mrs. Bell? Now I'm here. Thank you. Mr. Kuschert,
Here.
Mr. Lackner,
Here.
Mr. Lentz,
Here.
Mrs. McCabe,
Here.
Mr. McNally,
Yes, I'm here.
thank you. Mrs. Fairgrave,
Here,
Sorry about that. We will now begin with the election of the board president. Are there any nominations for board president?
I would like to nominate Heidi Fairgrave for president.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? And I have to ask 3 times, are there any other nominations for board president? Okay, thank you. The nominations for board president are now closed and the nominee is Heidi Fairgrave. I'm now going to take a roll call vote. So when I call your name, please state your choice, which is the name for board president. Mr. Kuschert,
Fairgrave.
Mr. Lackner,
Fairgrave.
Mr. Lentz,
Fairgrave.
Mrs. McCabe,
Fairgrave.
Mr. McNally,
Fairgrave.
Mrs. Bell,
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Mrs. Fairgrave. Thank you so much. Congratulations to Mrs. Fairgrave. She will now assume the role of board president.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the election of the board vice president. Are there any nominations for board vice president?
I'd like to nominate Joe Lackner.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, the nominations for board vice president are now closed. The nominee is Joe Lackner. Ms. Marsan will take a roll call vote for the office of vice president. When she calls your name, please state your choice for board vice president.
Mr. Lackner,
Lackner.
Mr. Lentz,
Lackner.
Mrs. McCabe,
Lackner.
Mr. McNally,
Lackner.
Mrs. Bell,
Mr. Lackner.
Mr. Kuschert,
Lackner.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Mr. Lackner. Congratulations to Joe Lackner. He will assume the role of board vice president. We will now move to the election of board secretary. Are there nominations for board secretary?
Mr. Kuschert.
I would like to nominate Becky McCabe.
Okay. Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay. Are there any other nominations? The nominations for board secretary are now closed. The nominees are Matt Kuschert and Becky McCabe. Ms. Marsan will take a roll call vote for the office of board secretary. When she calls your name, please state your choice for board secretary.
Mr. Lentz,
Kuschert.
Mrs. McCabe,
McCabe.
Mr. McNally,
Kuschert.
Mrs. Bell,
Becky McCabe.
Mr. Kuschert,
Kuschert.
Mr. Lackner,
Kuschert.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
McCabe. Congratulations to Matt Kuschert. He will assume the role of board secretary. Next, we will now move to the election of board treasurer. Are there nominations for board treasurer?
Justin Attaway.
Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay, are there any other nominations? The nominations for board treasurer is now closed. The nominee is Justin Attaway. Ms. Marsan, please take a roll call vote. When she calls your name, please state your choice for board treasurer.
Mrs. McCabe,
Justin Attaway.
Mr. McNally,
Justin Attaway.
Mrs. Bell,
Justin Attaway.
Mr. Kuschert,
Attaway.
Mr. Lackner,
Attaway.
Mr. Lentz,
Attaway.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Attaway. Congratulations to Justin Attaway. He will assume the role of board treasurer. Okay. Moving now to section 12 on the agenda, which is for action as well, setting the 2024-2025 school board meeting calendar. Can I have a motion to approve the 2024-2025 school board meeting calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz and Mr. McNally for the second. Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Do we have any, we do not have any citizen comments at this time. And the board will not be going into closed session this evening either. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McNally, and the second with Mr. Lentz. Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. The May 13th, 2024 regular board meeting is adjourned at 7:20.